Meta stock is currently $609 a share, and I think it has potential to go for 1K in 2026, $1,000 a share. So currently it's sitting at a 1.5 trillion market cap. So 1,000 will put it like around 2.5, 2.6 trillion, give or take. And I really think I could go for 3 trillion in 2026. So what I'm going to be talking about in this video, guys, is I'm going to be going over some of the charts real quick, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, see where we could be going for end of year, November, December on Meta, and where we could be going for 2026. And then I'm going to be talking about some of the financials. So I'm actually going to go over almost all of their the 10K, the Meta report, their third quarter earnings that came out like 2 weeks ago, but I haven't made a video on it. I just made a video on how the stock fell. I bought shares, the position I'm in. If you guys haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's betting big on Meta. So I bought 200 shares at $650 average. So I'm gonna be going over this whole 10K. Their revenues, their incomes, what happened to their EPS, which was a one-time event. So let's go over the charts real quick. So as it stands, Meta is currently at $609 a share. Right here, all-time high is 796, and the stock, well, the chart looks kind of broken. I'm not gonna lie. You're under the 50-day, this red line. You're under the 100-day, the green line, and you're under the 200-day, which doesn't always happen on these companies. But the strong companies, you're not always gonna be under the 200. Sometimes you do fall to them. I'm not saying it's a rare occurrence. It's a pretty normal occurrence. Just when you're like this, way under the 200, that's when you start seeing some problems. So Meta has not been able to even get back to this 200. Matter of fact, it's just far away from this 200. It has a gap fill around here from like 608 to 620. So there's a gap fill here which has already been completed, but technically there is a second gap to the bottom, which is around 650 to 670. So give or take 650, 670. There is another gap fill to be filled right here, and technically there is another one all the way down from like 500 to 515, with the low being 480. It was 479. Let's say 480s. So technically, in February of this year, we were at 700. We had the April tariff scare, where all the stocks tanked. Even Nasdaq fell 30%. Right? Tesla fell like 55%. Meta fell like 35, 40%, which was this move from 740 all the way to 480. Then from 480, regained all the way to all-time highs and overshot a little higher. So it regained that 740s and went to the 790s. Been chopping the whole summer, had its earnings, and look at this massive gap down after earnings. And this was because of the scares with their capex. Zuckerberg has given Wall Street PTSD over what he's done in the past with like metaverse and stuff like that. Remember in 2022 when Zuck was going broke, the stock was broken. You were hearing news that Zuck was going broke, literally, because the stock fell to $80 all the way from 400 to $88, which was pretty insane. So the fact that I'm betting big on Meta, it's a leap of faith, because this could pull a 2022. In theory, it could. It's just that it's different now, I'd say. AI is something worth spending on. I think the market will reward it eventually. I don't think they'll give it, they'll smack it back down how they did in 2022. The valuation is cheap as hell. What is it, like a 20 times forward? So I don't think it will get cheaper. Obviously, if it goes down to the 500s, 550, yeah. But I don't think it's going to be anything crazy like 350s, 300s now. So I'm all right with 650. And honestly, I'll buy more. How I'm going to play it, if Meta drops more, what I have planned is I was going to buy in 50K tranches, but I'm going to buy in 25K just to not use up all my powder, you know what I mean? So I'll probably deploy at 570 if we get to 570, 575, anywhere in the 570s. Probably throw in another 25K. And if we get to the lower end range, I'd say like the 520s, 570s, yeah, in the 520s or 530s, I'll throw in another 25K, and then I'll save another probably 50 or 25, I don't know, but I'll have a remaining 25 to 50 to throw at these lows. If we get to the 480 lows, start making lows under that, then yes, I'll try to deploy more powder. But honestly, I'm gonna show you guys how I want to play it on the monthly. Because when you guys see this chart on the monthly, a lot of people don't use the monthly. Short-term traders do not use the monthly. So they use, the 1 hour, the 15 minute. They try to get those moves, 1 week moves or 1 day moves, 2 day moves. But you can't go into those moves with a lot of money, like 100,000, 130,000 in my case with Meta. I can't do that with buying calls, buying options. I could do it with premiums, selling some calls against my shares, selling some puts, getting the premium. But the safest way for me is with shares, with, big capital, is with shares. Even if you got to bag hold it, because at the end of the day, you can buy more, cut your average, if you really have faith in the company that you're in. So, you can't be doing this on something like an AMC, a GameStop, right? The DCA strategy, which is technically what I'm doing, just on a bigger scale with capital. So those are the bear cases. Let's look to the bull case. End of year, my target, I have 750. Honestly, I think 740, anywhere from 730 to 750. I'm gonna undershoot it. Anywhere between this gap fill of 730 to 750 is where I think it could close the year. If it wants to have a bull case, 800 to all-time high. Bear case would probably be like 650 to 680, right? So I don't expect it to finish 650 to 680. It could, probably less. I don't think so. My case, probably 700 to 750. Bull case, we're already talking about, the 790s, over 800. So those are the three cases. I'm in the middle, the 700 to 750 for end of year, December 31st. So then what do we have on the weekly? Now let's go to the weekly and the monthly, because this is where you're going to see the better trend charts. So honestly, let's just go to the monthly, because you're going to be able to see it even better. You're going to be able to see all the history. So if you look at this chart, you're going to think this is like an NVIDIA chart, which is basically a straight line up. And yes, it is. But that doesn't tell the whole story, right? So the whole story starts around here, 2021, 2020, COVID. Actually coming out of COVID in 2021, the market topped, right? So Meta got to $380, almost 400. We could say 400. Got to $400. From 400, it absolutely tanked in 1 year. From 2021 to 2022, it fell from $400 all the way to $88 a share. Insane, right? Then coming out of that, 2023, it went back up to like 300. Where was it? Around here, 300, 350. 2024 went all the way to like the 500s. 2025, we've proceeded to the 700s. So from these lows, it's gone up like 8x. From prior highs, it's gone up like 1x. So it's a tale of two stories. Has it gone up 1x and only giving 100% gains? Or has it gone up 8x and given 800% returns? There's two different sides to look at it. People use both arguments all the time. I honestly think this trend is going to keep going, just like this with its pullbacks, like the April tariff pullback, the pullback from now, and it'll go like this, possibly even to 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 trillion in this same cycle. I do think so. I do think SPY favors it. If SPY keeps going, SPY is in the same camp, honestly. I'm not going to focus too much on SPY. I'm going to go straight back to this Meta chart. But SPY, this is how I see SPY, right? Where was this top? This was the 2021 top. And no, we're COVID before that, right? This was the COVID top. Yes, this was the COVID top, right? We broke all the way through bull market. We retested the bull market, the COVID top. We went all the way back up. We had a pullback. Actually, this chart didn't even show it, honestly. So forget everything I'm saying about the SPY and this trend. It kind of shows it. You see prior highs get retested right here. Prior highs get retested right here. So one day when we fall, I'm going to assume prior highs, when the market topped up here, actually, no. Where did market top? Yes, honestly, damn. I just confused y'all with this SPY chart, honestly, because I don't even know the pattern I'm looking for right now. I know it's this pattern on my other TC2000 chart. I've had it, but let's go back to Meta. Forget everything I was saying about SPY. Point is, I think SPY is going to have a bullish cycle with 2026 and 2027 because we're going to enter a QE cycle. QT is about to end in December. What else? Interest rate cut cycle is going to keep going. They're probably going to cut once more in December, once more in 2026. So I think that's going to give a bull market for equities, probably even real estate. But what do I know, right? I'm just some guy on YouTube. This isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Point is, I'm bullish on Meta. I think Meta is going to go to 1,000 in this same cycle where you had this little 30% pullback. You have a 30% pullback here. Now when we regain, we could probably go to like the 800s, 850, 900, get another pullback, then finally blast through to like 1,000, 1,050, 1,100, around there in this same cycle. I think Meta is going to keep going, right? That's on the chart side. Let's go to some of the fundamentals because this is where it gets juicy, right? This is where it gets juicy. I'm a fundamental guy. I don't like focusing too much on technicals. I just look at technicals just to see trends and stuff like that, right? How it's looking, but fundamentals is where it's at, right? So let's start from the very beginning. Meta reports third quarter 2025 results, October 29th. What are we? We're on the 13th, so 2 weeks ago. That's why I've been buying these last 2 weeks. Have an average price of $650. It's pretty nice. Menlo Park, California, October 29, Meta Platforms. Today reported financial results for the quarter ending September 30th, 2025. Now I want to read everything, just to make sure we don't miss anything. This is where it starts, Meta. And this is from Zuck right here. We had a strong quarter for our business and our community, said Mark Zuckerberg. Meta founder and CEO, Meta Superintelligence Labs is off to a great start, and we continue to lead the industry in AI glasses. If we deliver even a fraction of the opportunity ahead, then the next few years will be the most exciting period in our history. So basically, he's putting on the Reality Labs, the Superintelligence Labs, the AI glasses, the Oakley Meta glasses. But honestly, the street doesn't really care about that. Honestly, they only care about what are you going to do with your data centers, with your ads, with your platforms, your dApps. You know, dApps are their platforms like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. How are they going to monetize that to the moon? Hopefully get that to 1x revenues, to like 100 billion. Right, so let's look at some of the financials right here. Third quarter 2025 financial highlights. In millions, except percentages and per share amounts. Really, it's in billions. So revenue was 51 billion 2025 this quarter versus 40 billion 2024 last year, 26% year over year. Costs and expenses 30 billion versus 23 billion, 32% year over year. Income from operations was 20 billion versus 17 billion, 18% year over year. Operating margins 40% versus 43% year over year. And when we get to the end here, you're going to see where it gets juicy. Right? So provisions for income taxes 18 billion versus 2 billion last year, 788% change. Effective tax rate 87% versus 12%. Net income 2.7 billion versus 15 billion, 83% change. Diluted earnings per share 1.05 versus $6.03, 83% year over year. This was the what the hell. So what the hell happened? They absolutely missed earnings per share. 83% year over year. You think it's a 2022 Mark Zuckerberg. You're like, what's happening? But honestly, it was just a one-time tax charge, which they talk about immediately right here, right? Provisions for income taxes, one-time non-cash charge impact. We expect a significant reduction in our U.S. federal cash tax payments for the remainder of 2025 and future years due to the implementations of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Trying to blame it on Trump and his policies. Well played, Meta. Well played. However, the implementation also led to the recognition of a valuation allowance against our U.S. federal deferred tax assets, reflecting the impact of the U.S. corporate alternative maximum tax. As a result, the third quarter 2025 provision for the income taxes included a one-time non-cash income tax charge of 15.93 billion. Might as well have said 16 billion, leave it nice. But excluding this one-time tax charge, our third quarter 2025 effective tax rate would have decreased by 73 percentage points to 14%, compared to the reported effects tax rates of 87%. So right here it keeps going. Net income would have increased by 15 billion to 18 billion compared to the reported net income of 2 billion. So they're trying to explain what had happened here with earnings per share coming in at 1 cent. It really would have been like $7.40 around there had they not missed. Diluted EPS would have increased by 6.20 to 7.25 compared to the diluted earnings per share of $1.05. So yeah, it would have been in the $7, right? Third quarter 2025 operational and other financial highlights. Family daily active people DAP was 3.5 billion on average for September 2025, an increase of 8% year over year. So Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, they're going crazy. At least, not super crazy. What more can they grow when you already have half the world using your platforms? 3 billion people, 3.5 billion people every day, or at least every month using your platform. Like, it's crazy. So an 8% year over year is phenomenal for half the world, believe it or not. Ad impressions delivered across our family of apps increased by 14% year over year. Perfect. Average price per ad increased by 10% year over year. Phenomenal. Revenue was 51.24 billion, an increase of 26% year over year. Revenue on a constant currency basis would have increased 25% year over year. Okay. It is what it is. But Meta's phenomenal. They're gonna keep growing their revenues, and hopefully in like 4 or 5 years, this is like 100 billion a quarter. That'll be amazing. Costs and expenses. Total costs and expenses were 30 billion, an increase of 32% year over year. Expected capex. Capital expenditures included principal payments of financial leases were 19.37 billion, almost 20 billion. Capital return program. Share repurchases of our Class A common stock were 3.16 billion, and total dividend and dividend equivalent payments were 1.33 billion. Cash equivalents, and marketable securities were 44.45 billion as of September 30th. Cash flows from operating activities were 30 billion, and free cash flow was 10 billion. Headcount was 78,450 as of September, an increase of 8% year over year. So basically, this was what was going on with the operations, everything that's going in there. You had their revenues, what was going on with CapEx, their headcount. Now, this is where it gets really important. Let me see. Is it down here? It's on forward-looking statement. Let's just go over this right quick. So this is their CFO outlook, what they expect. So this is where it starts getting good. Market doesn't care about your current earnings. They care about future earnings. So they're already focusing on January earnings. Remember that. CFO outlook commentary. We expect fourth quarter 2025 revenue to be in the range of 56 to 59 billion. Our guidance assumes foreign currency, approximately 1% tailwinds year over year, total revenue growth. So basically here they're just talking about their revenues. We expect full year 2025 capital expenses to be in the range of 116 to 118 billion, updated from our prior outlook of 114 to 118 billion, reflecting 22%, 24% year over year. So basically they want to spend, say, 4 to 8 billion more, right? Meta's spending a lot. I'm not gonna lie. They said you're gonna see now. They said they're gonna spend 600 billion by 2028. Now, will they get to that number? I don't know. I think they're just trying to please Trump. They could probably get to like half that, 300 billion, but 600 billion, that's crazy. When you're at $500 billion market cap and you're gonna spend half your market cap, which that's a topic people have been bringing up. So basically, we don't have to read all this. This was just talking about their 2025 capex, how it's gonna be spent more. This is where it really matters right here, forward-looking statements. So let's just read this and non-GAAP financial measures, and that's all we're going to have, because at the bottom it's just more financials. But we already really went over the main financials. So I just want to read this off, and we're going to end the video on this. So forward-looking statements. This press release contains forward-looking statements regarding our future business plans and expectations. These forward-looking statements are only predictions and may differ materially from actual results due to various factors, including the impact of macroeconomic conditions, So where it really starts getting good is right here. Right here. Our reliance on advertising revenue, our dependency on data signals and mobile operating system networks, standards that we do not control. Where does it start getting good? Actually, it was down here. Damn, my bad, guys. It was on the non-GAAP EPS financial measure. To supplement our condensed consolidated financial statements, we are prepared and presented in accordance with general acceptance accounting principles in the United States GAAP. Honestly, no, it wasn't here. It was actually more up here. So yeah, we already ran over what the main important things. That we already ran over their capex. Meta is going to be spending like 118 billion a year, probably in 2026, which is a lot. They said they're going to spend over 600 billion by 28, which is crazy. At least revenues will keep growing. Next quarter, they could come in from like 56 to 59 billion, which is going to be crazy. I don't know how they're still growing their revenues, but everybody loves Instagram, right? So let's go back to the chart just so we can end it here. So this is what we have for Meta, man. Really, I'm expecting 1,000. 2026 could overshoot it to like 1,100, 1,200, probably even 1,300, man, if 2026 is phenomenal. So that's all I have for Meta. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. It really helps. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.